smoke and mirrors, they lead the way, fooling hearts night after day. Welcome to the show, it's all pretend. The smiles, the lies, the perfect end. The world's a stage, they run the flow. You clap on cue down in the front row. Painted faces, masks of stone. A hollow laugh that chills the bone. Puppets dangle strings unseen. Life's a trick, a cruel machine. Do you see it? Do you feel it? Or just believe it? Welcome to the show, it's all pretend. The smiles, the lies, the perfect end. The world's a stage, they run the flow. You clap on cue down in the front row.
Welcome back to Breaking the System. Let's start. Imagine standing at the top of the world and you have money beyond your comprehension, influence that bends legislation, access to like presidents, CEOs, intelligence agencies, and you can buy almost anything. And yet, historically, the powerful, they don't stop at money. They seek symbols, they seek ritual, they seek secrecy. And why? Why is that? If materialism is not enough, why do the elites keep reaching beyond it? And so here's a question that might unsettle some people. If the most powerful individuals on earth behave as though spiritual forces matter, does that mean that we have underestimated the spiritual dimension of reality? Or does it mean something entirely different? So tonight we're not chasing conspiracy, we're chasing meaning. So, welcome to Breaking the System. This is Do They Know Something We Don't? The spiritual vacuum of power. And so the whole purpose of this episode is, after digging into and looking over some of the Epstein files and looking at history, and we're going to get into some of the history of the world, it seems like a lot of our elites, the rich, they're into more than just material things, right? When we really dig to like the core of the Epstein files, what's taking place? Well, we have these blood rituals, we have these sacrifices of children, which are supposed to be the most sacred of God's creatures. Okay, why is that? Right, and you could travel down that rabbit hole all day for a long, long time. Like, that's a deep, deep rabbit hole. But like, I was asking myself, if these people that have all this money and all this power and all this wealth, if they're jumping into the divine, but it's more on the what we would call the evil side, or the the Satanistic side. What does that mean for the rest of us? Okay, so I'm curious. So I got curious and I went down this rabbit hole. Okay, so let's go back to the beginning. Has power always married the sacred, or have they been joined at the hip at some point? Okay, so let's look. Ancient Egypt, the pharaoh was the divine one. When we jump to Rome, the emperor became godlike after they were dead and deceased. In China, the mandate of heaven was who justified in being the ruler. Excuse me. And in medieval Europe, kings ruled by the so-called divine right. Okay, so power has always anchored itself to transcendence somehow at some point. Okay. Even secretively, intellectual groups like the Bavarian Illuminati framed their authority around hidden enlightenment. The British elite, exploring ritual magic inside the Hermetic Order of the Golden Dawn, believed knowledge could evaluate or elevate consciousness. So American political dynasties passing through Skull and Bones bind loyalty through ritual. And we've heard there are a lot of presidents that have been a part of this Skull and Bones group. Okay, and that's another neat rabbit hole if you want to go down that. Look up the Skull and Bones. So private gatherings like the Bohemian Grove mix power with symbolism. And the key is that symbolism changes across centuries. The hunger for that does not. The hunger stays the same. So let's talk Rome. Because when we're looking at the United States, Rome really matters. Okay? In its late stages, civic virtue declined, traditional religion weakened, and of course we know the bread and circus pacified the masses for the most part. Elite decadence grew, but here's the overlooked detail. As traditional Roman religions failed, mysterious cults exploded into popularity. So there's a couple of them here. Mithralism, Eastern rites, and horrible pronunciation. Esoteric spiritual systems. And so why? Why is that? Because when public meaning erodes, right? So we're talking about civilization as itself. When civilization has no morals, no meaning, private spiritual hunger intensifies, which means for the individual person. So if we don't come together collectively, right, individually, we're going to be hungry for some kind of spiritual guidance. Okay? And so the empire didn't collapse because of demons. It collapsed because of cohesion. The cohesion within Rome had dissolved. And when people no longer share a sacred narrative, fragmentation follows. Now ask yourself, are we technologically advanced, but spiritually fragmented? Just in the United States, just look at just the United States. Are we so technologically advanced, but yet we're spiritually fragmented? Personally, I know the answer to that. What do you think it is? Okay? Just within the United States. Then look at that and take that globally. Okay? And of course, we're always going to be fragmented to some degree because we have so many different religions around the world. But is there one religion above all the others that has some type of guidance or transcendence for the rest of society to kind of follow or be that beacon? Okay? And is there an enlightenment trade-off? Right? The Enlightenment liberated humanity from superstition. Science flourished, industry expanded, medicines advanced, and something shifted. Okay? If we look at Frederick, and I'm going to butcher his last name, Nietzsche, Nietzsche, okay? He warned that removing God culturally would destabilize moral foundations. We look at Max Weber, described modernity as the Iron Age. Rational, efficient, spiritually sterile. We have traded mystery for mechanism. And now we have things like GDP growth, algorithmic governance, AI-driven narratives, financialization of basically everything. Everything under the sun has been financialized. But when we take a step back and we look at other things like anxiety, depression, isolation, all of those are doing what? Well, they're on the rise. Okay? They're shooting up. So if humans are purely biological machines, why does meaning matter so much? Why does injustice feel wrong beyond survival advantage? Why does beauty move us? And those are all really good questions, right? So when culture feels hollow, a powerful narrative emerges. And I would think with all of those questions that we just asked ourselves, it kind of gives a hollow meaning to society. If we're only looking at beauty as in being skin deep instead of like beauty irradiating from us as individuals, us as from a culture, from a society, as a nation, like, are we beautiful as a nation or are we toxic as a nation? Okay? And one, I think, is amazing, and one gives culture this hollow feeling, and has this powerful narrative that emerges from us. And you could also talk about the machinery aspect of it. Are we getting so mechanicalized that everything feels cold and there's no emotion that's attached to that? Okay, so that can feel hollow as well, and there's no real meaning to that as well. So this powerful narrative that emerges from this hollowed out culture is they know something and they're hiding it. This idea, it's intoxicating, right? This hollowness, it can feel intoxicating. And it explains why we have a moral drift and why the elites, band around or gather around this idea of symbolism. You have this social fragmentation, right? That socially, we have the elites that are up here and we have the rest of society that's down here. There's that fragmentation, right? And just by looking at and reading into some of the Epstein files, like, the elites, they live in a completely different world than the rest of us. And if you haven't realized that by now, then you're lost. You're completely lost. So this social fragmentation, and it turns existential uncertainty into intentional design. Do they intentionally design these things? Okay, so that maybe because culture feels hollowed out, because there's no meaning in life, where does society run towards, especially in modern society? Well, we gravitate towards people that we think are famous and powerful, like Hollywood, like our favorite bands, people that have money that we look up to, right? That we kind of put them on this pedestal, so to speak, okay? And we look to those people as like almost like gods, right? And that's what they're kind of talking about here. So it turns existential uncertainty into intentional design. They intentionally design these things this way. But historically, power consolidates for simpler reasons. Power consolidates because of control, because of stability, leverage, incentives. You don't need metaphysical evil to explain corruption. I think corruption lives within humanity itself, right? I think humans, we are intentionally flawed at birth. We're flawed. And so the human ego is enough for that, right? We're all egotistic about something, and that is a flaw. That is corruption within our very souls. And here's what it gets nuanced. Even if elites don't possess secret cosmic proof, right? Let's say that the elites, they don't have to have proof that Satan exists or that God exists. The fact that humans at the top still seek transcendence suggests something profound. And that is that material success does not satisfy the deepest human questions. So, even though us poor people, us average people, every Joe Schmo blue collar, right? We thrive for the day that, that we can retire and we don't have to have money, that we don't have to live for money, that we could have money live for us, that we could be rich and we could be powerful. But even the rich and powerful, once they have reached that pedestal, what's the next pedestal above that? And they're constantly reaching for it. Even the rich and the elite, they're constantly reaching for something because material success does not satisfy the deepest human questions. Okay? And so let's look at the psychological engine of ritual. Ritual isn't supernatural by default. It is neurological. It's shared ritual creates this trust. Secrecy creates this type of bonding. Symbolism creates an identity. Okay, and so military units, they use ritual, fraternities use ritual, religions use ritual, corporations use rituals. When elites use ritual, it may look dark, but often it's about loyalty reinforcement. Right? How loyal are you? And the danger isn't that ritual existence. The danger is ritual without moral accountability. So if I'm getting drawn into this ritual and I don't have any moral hindrances about me, what's going to stop me? Right? And so let's say that the next ritual is twice as bad. I'm going to do that. And the next ritual is twice as bad as that one. I'm going to do that one again. Because there's no moral accountability within me, myself, my individual, okay? And that's where the danger can lie. Right? It's not that the ritual itself is a danger, but there's no moral accountability stopping me from telling myself, hey, this is dangerous. I shouldn't do this. And so power bonded without ethical restraints becomes predatory. That's political silence, not theology. So now let's jump into modern AI, media, and the new priesthood. Okay, and this is where we kind of bring it into today. In ancient times, priests mediated between us, the humans, and the divine. So what about today? Like, that still kind of exists, but what's the big one? Algorithms. Algorithms mediate between humans, and not the divine, but humans and reality. Media curates our perception. We just talked about this. AI filters what it says is truth, or what it thinks is truth. And data predicts behavior. All of those things combined are extremely dangerous. And the longer that those things play out, the more exponentially dangerous that scenario can become. Because now we don't know what true perception is. We don't know what's truthful and not. And if all of our behaviors are getting predicted upon, they basically know what we're going to do before we even do it, right? So we basically have no control over ourselves. There's no freedom in that world. And so the priesthood shifted from temples to servers, like data centers, right? And that's in the news all the time nowadays. We're going to build a data center here. We're going to build 3 here. We're in this town. We're going to build 4. Like, data centers are all over the place. Okay, so we have given up the temples where we used to worship, and now we serve these data centers, these servers, because of the algorithms that mediate between us and what is reality. What do they see as reality? And that's not because of demons, right? It's not because of demons. It's because of technological evolution. How is technology evolving daily? But I think we still have spiritual questions that remain. If meaning is now shaped by code, who shapes the coders? And this is something that especially Elon Musk has been talking about lately with AI. AI can be very helpful, and AI can be very dangerous. And it's not the AI itself. It's who is writing the code that the AI is using and learning and developing the next version of itself. Because the coder is way more dangerous than the AI. The coder can make the AI extremely dangerous, but the coder itself, the person that's coding the AI, is far more dangerous than AI. And so this is something that Musk has been talking about, in that it does matter how we are coding AI, how AI not only interacts within itself and with other AI, but how it sees us living side by side with AI in the future. Okay? And so is our sacred narrative now economic growth? Is productivity our new god? Is outrage the new ritual? Because if we live within the realm of algorithms and data centers and the media and all of that, those are 3 really good questions, right? Those are really good questions. And so when we return to Plato, and we're going back to the cave again. I really love the story of the cave. In the cave, prisoners mistake shadows for truth, because that's all they know. No one's ever told them anything else other than that. Remember that. Most people assume the shadows are the elite manipulation. But what if the deeper shadow is cultural materialism? Yeah. Think about that. Cultural materialism. It's the new fad. It's the new, I got to get that. I got to have that. Right? What if the real illusion is believing we are nothing more than economic units? Because that day's coming. What happens when the elites no longer need blue-collar workers in their factories? It's right around the corner, right? When AI takes over a lot of the driving jobs, trucker jobs, taxis, Uber, those jobs are on the brink of not existing anymore. Okay? Are those people considered economic units now? Think of all the factory workers. Think of all those economic units that are soon to be disposed of. And the scary part is for a lot of those people, and it's not, I'm not saying that those people are dumb by any means, because they're not. They're very, very smart, and we could not function in society without our blue-collar factory workers. But what happens, and this is real close, this is in the next 3 to 5 years, if not sooner, that the majority of our factory workers will not be humans. The majority of our factory workers will be AI robotics. And so now, what was once a human entity within society working not only for their betterment, but for society's betterment, now that is being replaced by an economic unit, a robot. And so the cave may not be a hidden elite chamber. It may be a world view that forgot transcendence. Maybe we forgot what transcendence looks like, what it is, because we're so focused on the next fad, the next thing, the next I gotta have this, especially in the United States, where our constitutional republic is built upon consumerism. Modern day, the United States is built upon consumerism. There are a lot of economic units that are in play because we forgot what transcendence is. And so if elites seek transcendence, it doesn't prove that God exists. If society feels spiritually hollow, it doesn't prove a conspiracy. But it does reveal something undeniable, that humans are meaning-seeking creatures. We always have been, and for the better part, we probably always will be. We're always seeking for some type of meaning, even within ourselves and within society, within the nations that we currently live in. What is the meaning for you? What is the meaning behind the United States of America? That's a good question. It's a good question that we should ask ourselves daily. And is that meaning changing? Because humans are meaning-seeking creatures, and power does not eliminate that. Wealth doesn't silence it either. And technology doesn't replace it. So instead of asking, do they know, and by they, we're talking about the elites, do the elites know something that we, common blue-collar folk, don't? Maybe we should ask it like this. What is reality fundamentally? That's a good one. What is reality fundamentally? Because it could change. The meaning of that, the answer to that question could change. Is morality discovered or is it invented? Is consciousness accidental? And you're going to answer these questions completely different than myself and than your neighbor, okay? And that's good. That speaks diversity, which is what we're supposed to have. But remember, at the end of the day, Just because I'm answering a question differently than you doesn't mean that we can't come to the table and talk about those differences, right? Because that is what can make us grow into something more powerful than we are today, right? Grabbing a hold of that diversity, okay? So is consciousness accidental? And is transcendence psychological, or is it metaphysical? And so the breaking of the system isn't about exposing secret rituals. The breaking of the system is about confronting the possibility that we have reduced existence to what? To machinery. We're at the point in history where machines, right, and I'm not being conspiratorial here. I'm saying look at the facts, look at the hard data, look at where society has been in the last 50 years, and where do you think society is headed within the next 50 years? And there is a real possibility that we will reduce the existence of humanity to a machine. And maybe, just maybe, the hunger that you feel inside yourself isn't about elites at all. Maybe it's about the soul refusing to accept a purely mechanical universe. Could be. If we are made in God's own image, I'm sure God did not imagine a mechanical universe where everything is ruled by AI. I'm sure that's not the future that He had pictured for us. Okay? So, this has been another episode of Breaking the System, episode 31. I hope you guys ask yourselves those questions. I hope you sit down and give yourself true answers. Grab a pen, grab a piece of paper, write the question down, write your answer down, think about it, talk about it with your neighbor. Talk about it with somebody that you agree with politically, spiritually. Talk about these things with somebody that you don't agree with politically and spiritually. But talk about it. Okay? We've got to come to the table. We're so divided on everything anymore, especially in the United States. If we don't find moral ground, if there's not some kind of trade-off where we can cohesively exist in the realm of the United States together, then, like we've talked about before, what does the United States look like? Are we doomed to fail just like all of the other democracies? Is our constitutional republic failed or designed to fail just like all of those other democracies, just like Rome? Okay? Ask yourself those questions. Deep think, deep dive. And we'll see you guys next time.